what's going on today?
I am hanging out with one of the great guys in country music right here. You.
Well, I appreciate you. That's very kind of you. So
Uh,
you're getting ready to go Hawaii. Like, when are you leaving?
I leave tomorrow.
Oh, so we really did get this in under the gun.
Yeah, just in time, man.
I wanted to feature some of your wonderful comments here as you consider watching this video further. Michael Peterson is a great country music artist, but also a great human being. His wife has also accomplished some wonderful things in the history of PTS, which is post-trauma stress. He goes on to talk in this video about a lot of things that not only he has been doing for the United States military, but really his wife Jill, who is a colonel. She's retired now, but she still works for the veteran and military families out there. Michael Peterson is a big music fan. He was a big Elvis fan as well as the Beatles. And of course, there's a lot of influences that we all have in our music. But I wanted to let you guys know that I hope you continue to watch this video. And if you make it to the very end, shout it out, okay? This is about an hour-long video, so grab some popcorn. Grab your favorite snacks. Maybe go sit outside on the front porch and enjoy the outside air, unless it's 25 degrees like it's in Tennessee right now. Maybe you don't want to do that because you might freeze and fall down the stairs. Anyways, I enjoyed this very much, so I hope you enjoy it. And we're going to keep continuing to bring Michael on here to shine a light on not just his music, but the things that he and his wife are doing for those that are in great need.
Well, good deal. Yeah, to give a little background, Michael and I were supposed to record this a few days ago, and I just got so busy and all this other stuff that he was kind enough to allow me to push it off to right before he was getting ready to get on the plane. Uh, so I'm sure the limousine's outside waiting for y'all, right?
Well, that might be somebody else's house. I got a,
No, but
I got a,
this
I
is an
got a, I
anniversary
got a
trip,
couple of
isn't it?
horses waiting for me outside.
There you go. Hey, so this is an anniversary trip, I think, isn't it, to
It
celebrate?
is. Yeah, every year for our anniversary we go to Hawaii, so
Jeez,
it's
that's
nice.
that's a tall that's a tall task for me. My wife saw that, and she's like, "When are you going to take me to Hawaii?"
Well, I'm a little bit older than you, and so there's more pressure on me to get it done.
No, that's amazing. though. That's great. 18 years, I think.
No, this is our 12th year.
12. I'm sorry. I was
That's
for some
okay.
reason I that's still a
We've
lot of
we've known
years.
we've known each other for this will be 20 years that we've known each other this May, and this is our 12th wedding anniversary. So we're starting year 13. So lucky 13.
So tell us, how did you propose? What was the? I mean, my subscribership has kind of heard about my story, so let's hear yours.
Okay, so we were in Paris, and I was over there doing some shows in France, and took a day to just see the city, which is crazy because you need years to see Paris, but
Hmm.
we had a day, so we had to take what we had, and we ended up by the time the sun was going down, we ended up underneath the underneath the Eiffel Tower, and it was just so romantic, There's lights everywhere. Beauty. It was just the ambiance, the lights, the wine, all of it. It was just really a special time. So Paris left a real impression on us. And fast forward, I don't know how many years it was later, we decided that we wanted to get married. So um, I decided that you know, because of our schedule, we couldn't actually get back to Paris. But luckily, every great city in the world is built into Las Vegas. So,
Oh yeah.
right, you can go to New York, you can go to Paris, you can go. So I got us a reservation at the Paris Eiffel Tower restaurant. Got a beautiful, nice table facing the Bellagio, so we could see Italy from France. And and as the fountains were doing their thing at the Bellagio, which, as you know, is breathtaking, I proposed, and we got married very, very simple fashion, really. My brother and his wife were our witnesses. We had a minister. That was our wedding ceremony. And then about 6 months later, we invited about 200 of our friends who, we knew needed time to plan and
Sure.
whatnot. We had a big celebration here in our new home in Las Vegas. Um, it was really a special time, but um, as special as that was, it's just better and better. And I'm so grateful for that because I know it often isn't that way.
No, no.
So I'm just grateful for that. So we celebrate our 12th anniversary, and I remember a pastor saying to me years ago, he said, if your wife isn't more beautiful in 10 years, you only have yourself to blame. So he was kind of trying to make a point. And the fact that she's more beautiful means I get to take the credit.
Yeah, that's wonderful because
No,
now,
no.
yeah, I know you do. I know we are what do they say we're hitting above our punching above our weight or whatever. I think there's a
Yeah,
saying.
or, punting above your coverage, or you know, yeah. So my wife is definitely a step up for me, and probably the nicest thing I've been able to say about when people say, "What does Jill mean to you?" and I just say, "I'm healthier, I'm happier, I'm more peaceful, and I'm more content." So
That's great. Well, you know what? I mean, everybody can hope. I mean, I feel the same way now. Real quick, January 1st is that your anniversary?
yeah, uh-huh.
Okay,
That
and
was
I think I
and
put
that was
something on your
an anniversary for you too, right? But when you met,
yeah from when we met.
yeah,
And Bart Herbison from Nashville
of
Songwriters
course, right?
Association. I had gone in, and Bart was a good buddy of mine. He had been trying to get me a record deal and all that stuff back in the day, and playing my songs for everybody. And I was in his office one day, somewhere around October or November of 2005. And he goes, "Look at this beautiful girl." And it was a picture, I guess it was her promotion kit on his
Yeah,
desk right there in front of his desk.
right,
He had a little
right.
little table. And I didn't really think nothing of it besides, yeah, she's pretty, you know. And then about 2 months after that, she shows up at my door with another songwriter.
Uh-huh.
He and I had written a song, and I guess he wanted her to meet me because maybe I was going to do a demo of her singing. We don't remember the exact reason.
Yeah.
Um, but she got over there and we met, and I mean, I was dating somebody at the time, the scoundrel that I was, and
Did you say
we ended up.
was?
No, I was
Did you say
dating
did you
some.
say, did you say was?
Yeah, I was. Yes, I was. Um, I was whatever. But I was dating somebody, uh, a couple people actually, but I wasn't serious about anybody. And we exchanged MySpaces, the information.
Yeah.
Uh, and about 2 weeks later, she said, "Hey, let's write together." And I think I played guitar for her at a show. And really, that was New Year's Day. On Valentine's Day, I was working, and her and I were talking, and I thought, gosh, the girls I'm dating right now don't measure up to what I'm starting to feel for this girl. And a couple of days later, I got back to Nashville, and I called both the girls I was dating, and it wasn't serious. We weren't getting married. I wasn't engaged to either one, and a couple different states, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I met somebody that I really want to get serious with, and you're lovely, you're wonderful, you deserve happiness. What you're supposed to tell somebody, what I really felt. And I said, so we're gonna have to cut contact because I really want to be serious here. Which kind of shocked one of them. The other one expected it. And so we went on our first date, February 17th. And
Right.
we just met at a bookstore, read a little bit, had some coffee, went out and got a salad, and we talked in the car for maybe 2.5 hours. And we spilled secrets, like the deepest, darkest secrets that we both had. It was
Oh,
incredible. Um, and she went home, and I called my best friend, and I called my mom that night and said, I just had my first date with a girl I'm going to marry.
wow.
And we had written 4 or 5 songs at the Nashville Songwriters Association between January 1st and February 17th. So it's not like it was the first time we met each other. We had spent some time.
Right.
And so within a week, I bought the engagement ring. And I think I still have the receipt. And I hoped that she was going to like it. A couple months after that, I was waiting for the perfect time. So my birthday came up, May 18th. So after we had a nice day together, we went back to my apartment, and I got down on one knee, and it's a longer story than that. I mean, she was trying to rest. We went golfing that day, so she was all on bed trying to take a nap after being outside hitting a golf ball and chasing it around in the summer. So I said, "Babe, get up." And she goes, "No, I'm tired. Honey, can you please just get up for 1 second?" "No, what do you want?" He was like, she just wanted to just lay there. So she got up and I went down on my knee, and I asked her on my birthday, because who can say no on somebody's birthday?
Right, yeah. Well, that's fun, man. That's what a great story. So now I have something really shocking to tell you.
Oh, all right.
So you met January 1st and you proposed May 18th. Jill and I met May 18th and we married January 1st.
Oh my goodness, dude.
So the fact
That's
that we share
amazing.
those dates, I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances? First
Right,
off, we didn't know that, and what are the chances that the whole
right.
world is going to discover it
Yeah,
today on
yeah.
YouTube? Well,
That's great.
hmm.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, I really love getting to know your story about you and Jill. I only met Jill one time. Both my wife and I've only met Michael. Well, we actually met more than once.
Sure, yeah.
Twice.
Couple of times. But thank you for sharing your story too. I love hearing that.
Yeah, you bet. And like I said, Jill is a sweet, wonderful woman, and she's gosh, I mean, I know you brag about her all the time. She was a colonel.
Yeah, she retired as a full colonel. Her last 12 years she served in the Pentagon. Her last four bosses were consecutively all the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. So
Okay.
General Shelton, General Myers, General Pace, the first Marine Corps chairman, and then her last assignment there was with Admiral Mike Mullen when he was the chairman. So she was working at the Pentagon on 9/11. Um, long story to tell there, but she ended up with a pretty severe case of post-traumatic stress, but didn't know that she had it because she just thought, I can only sleep a couple hours a night because I'm having nightmares of burning airplanes chasing me. And
Yeah.
she was responsible for about 300 people that she had to help find and get out of the building. So it was just a very traumatic day for her. But she said the next day after 9/11 on 9/12, Secretary Rumsfeld brought everybody in and said, "We're going back to work. So come on." So nobody had time to really downtime and kind of figure out what's happening. So she was a year and a half into sleeping 2 hours a night, and Admiral Mullen asked her to become his special assistant for what they call returning warrior issues.
Hmm.
And he said to her that he'd been hearing that there were service members that were dealing with emotional trauma, and he wanted to find out more about it, to find out, really if it was real and what could be possibly be done about it. So he signed Jill that task, and over the next 2 years, she, researched, interviewed, built a team of people, including former Surgeon General of the United States Richard Carmona, um, Marty Seligman, the former University of Pennsylvania, well, he's still there, University of Pennsylvania in the psych department, the founder of positive psychology, the former president of the Psychiatric Association, American Psychiatric Association. So people of that caliber, she built this team, and made a presentation eventually to the Chief of Staff of the Army, who, just as life unfolds, his son who had been in the service and had experienced trauma had committed suicide the year prior. And when he saw the research and the team and the work that Jill had put together around really showing that there really is a problem, he became the first general in the history of all the military, any branch, to create a program that would not only address the issues of mental health for those who've experienced trauma, but also address the potential of the effects of trauma on those who are likely to face trauma. So they put together a program called Comprehensive Soldier Fitness. And at the time that that program was created, there was nothing else like it in the world, really. And now all of the branches have their own version of that. And it all really stemmed from Jill, the work that she did, the presentations that she made, the grit that it took her to stand up to 3- and 4-star generals who told her to drop it because
Yeah.
they were concerned about the stigma of mental health. It made the service members look weak. And now, they couldn't talk about it back then, and now it's a common conversation. So because of that, Jill was recognized and inducted into the Army Women's Hall of Fame. She was Department of Defense Senior Professional Women's Association Woman of the Year. She was, I could go on and on, a long list of things. AOL, Time Warner has a thing called Next Makers. And this organization recognizes significant women who are affecting and changing the course of American history that you may not know their names.
Right.
And so she was selected for that, got a big grant for that. And she has spent every year, really since she retired, nurturing, caring for, advising, mentoring people that are dealing with post-traumatic stress, trying to help them. And it's not a business, so we don't pay our rent with it. It's a gift of love that she uses her skill set, her 4 master's degrees, her experience with having post-traumatic stress herself, all of the modalities that she's learned about non-pharmaceutical pathways to wellness for people dealing with post-traumatic stress. So that's
Right.
been something that she's done a lot of the last, I don't know, it's been 12, 13, 14, 15 years now. She speaks all over the world, about post-traumatic stress. So obviously I'm not very proud of her, but that's my wife.
Well, I'm proud of her, and I don't even know her because, I mean, first off, in order to succeed like she did in the military, and then to open herself up the vulnerability to actually take a stand when everybody was saying drop it. I
Yeah.
mean, that takes even more than fortitude and strength. I mean, it takes
She's got guts, man.
superhuman. So,
Yeah.
I mean, let her know that we all appreciate it, her service,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
but the fact that she's helping out generations of future soldiers from not having to maybe not having to go through what she went through at all, or at least
Exactly.
lessen the effects, because that's
Yes.
important. And I
Yeah.
know myself, Kristen has severe PTSD for 2.5 to 3 years after we lost Anson, and after
Yeah.
she almost died twice with two different surgeries. So she
Of
almost died twice, and so she would wake up in the middle of the night jumping, all the PTSD that happens, and the lack of sleep, horrible, 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 thinking you're going to
Yeah.
die all the time.
Yeah. We talk about PTS, and Jill was one of the first people to start that initiative that said drop the D, because it's sort of the I know some people call it post-traumatic stress disorder, and
Okay.
clinically, that's what it's called. If you look it up in the DSM-4, or 5 or whatever they're on now, that's clinically what it's called. But there's a certain stigma when you give somebody a label that says they have a disorder. So there's been a movement of people that Jill was one of the first people really to talk about it, to say, it's not helping. We say we want to help these people, but it's not helping when we call it a disorder. What post-traumatic stress is, it depends on who you talk to. If you're a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist, I'm sure you have your justifications for calling it a disorder. But what post-traumatic stress is from another perspective, and as many people believe this as the other, it's a natural, normal response to a traumatic event that happened in your life. So when we remove the D, and we just call it post-traumatic stress, we get a chance to sort of move some of the stigma aside and to kind of destigmatize it. So I'm sorry that your wife went through that, but a lot of people, when we talk about PTS or PTSD, just think it's a military thing. But clearly, like from your situation, it is. I mean, anybody that's been through trauma can understand what it is to be on the heels of knowing that you could, you're within an inch of losing your life, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's an after effect of that. So, I've never said this to you before because I didn't realize that about your wife. But if there's ever anything that Jill could offer to be a support for her as she moves to a stage that they now call post-traumatic growth.
Right.
right? Then that's something that I know Joe would love to do.
Well, that's great, and I love the fact that you're talking about the PTS, to taking the D off, because shame, you think about how much the world has changed since you and I, were younger. Now, I mean, you could have an alcohol problem or a drug problem, and you can get it's. I mean, they're kind of in the same vicinity here. There's less shame, and there's a chance to overcome it. Now, PTSD, it's fight or flight. It's not something at all. I mean, not that alcoholism or drug addiction is somebody's fault. And sometimes you're born into it, and sometimes it's just, you're,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but
Well,
yeah,
I like what you're saying. The distinction, I think what you're saying, if I can sort of put it in my words, um, shame doesn't help, and if you're an alcoholic or drug addict, I'm sure there was a long journey of getting there. And the real focus should be on recovery.
hmm
And if you have post-traumatic stress, why do we need to make it more difficult for people to feel like that they're willing to open up about it? There's some kind of shame in there, like because there is unfortunately still a stigma around mental health in the world, and people are hesitant to say, "Wow, I'm having some trouble with my thinking." Well, you say that to somebody, they look at you like they need to be careful or something.
correct.
So it's difficult for people to find their way there. So removing the D, I think, just in our common everyday sort of usage of that phrase post-traumatic stress, um, just is a tiny thing that we can do to help reduce the stigma.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know there's some subscribers out there that may not even be aware they got PTS, and so
Yeah,
sometimes talking about it, destigmatizing it, like we're doing. Jill's an everyday person who's accomplished great things. My wife's wonderful. She's a mother, of two wonderful boys, and one that's gone to his great reward already, and a great talent in her own right. And it can happen to anybody in any stage of life at any point in time. 10 years old, 50 years old, 80 years old.
yeah,
So, and as always, when I close the videos, a lot of times I say, hey, take care of yourselves, pick up the phone, call a friend, go sit by the window if you're all alone, open the window, get some fresh air, to self-care in a sense, because we don't think about that enough in this world. And so yeah, so applaud Jill, and I know she does it to give back, as well, and not just because of the love she has for the soldiers and military, but the love she has for people in general. So,
right.
um, love hearing that,
She's got a
and it's a
calling on her life.
yeah, it's a perfect segue into kind of what I was going to talk about a little bit with you. We know you had a record deal in Nashville, and you had some great successes here in Nashville, but you also kind of haven't stopped touring, doing music, cutting records. I went over to your SoundCloud and listened to some songs that I had not heard, and it
Hmm.
was great. I love rolling down the road, but you've gone and done a lot of stuff for the military,
Hmm.
which is great, because I mean the partnership you have and the relationship you have with Jill has allowed you to thank the soldiers. So let's talk about what you've done, some of your favorite moments, some of the favorite places you've been.
Um, that's a wonderful thing for you to acknowledge that, and I appreciate that. Um, I'm far enough down the road now in that journey that it's easier for me to talk about it. I was hesitant to talk about it for a long time because I didn't want to make it about me. Like, this is not about me. Like, I remember I said to my agent, Bobby Roberts was my agent at the time that 9/11 happened, and I said, hey, if there's anything that I can do to support servicemen and women, let me know. So I got a call one day, and he said, there's an event at Fort Campbell. There's going to be 1,200 service members who are about to deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan. I can't remember which it was at that point. I think it might have been Iraq. Yeah, it probably was Iraq.
Yeah.
And he said, they're doing a spring formal. Would you go down and, play for them? So I went to Fort Campbell, and there was no money in it, and I didn't care because I had said to him, yeah, if you need me, I'll go. So I went, and that night, after the event was over, um, a colonel, full colonel, came up to me and He's in his dress blues. He just looked like so impressive, you know. And he said, "Do you have a card?" So I gave him a songwriter's card, which is the nearest bar napkin.
Right.
And I wrote my phone number on it, and his name was Xavier, and he was the executive officer to the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, General Dick Cody, who was there at the event. And I don't know how long it was. A couple of weeks later, my phone rings, and I'm at the gas pump filling up my truck, and I'm standing there on the cell phone, and this guy says, "Hey, this is so and so. I'm calling you from the Pentagon." And I thought, which one of my drunk friends is this?
Right, right.
Right? Like, what are you guys calling him? Hey, we want to do something with you. Yeah, right. Because I didn't expect anything like that. So, but luckily I didn't say that out loud. and, uh,
Yeah.
and we got deeper in the conversation, and I realized it was legit. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, he said, "My boss told me to call you and ask you what you want to do." And I said, uh, "I don't know how to answer the question because I don't know that much about what you need." So I said, um, "You obviously know that I'm an entertainer, but I don't know what you guys need. And I'm just, I want to help. I don't just want to go do a show. Like, I want to help." So anyway, long story short, they invited me to fly to Maryland, and I flew to Baltimore, and I went to Fort Meade, I think it was. And they set me up to spend the day with the Army Field Band.
Okay.
And I don't think they knew either. They just thought, well, let's put these people in a room together and see if they can get their peanut butter in each other's chocolate or whatever. So
Sure. Yeah.
so when he said, "My boss told me to call you," well, his boss was Jill.
Hmm.
At the time, Jill was the director of strategic communications for the whole Army. And her job, among other things, was to find assets and resources that could help promote and support, more than promote, but support the message that the Army was a good thing for America. Because there's a good number of people in America that have a different message than that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, um, so they flew me out there. I met Jill that day, and through some conversations that we had through lunch, she thought, "Well, okay, I like this guy. I want to take him back to the Pentagon and introduce him to the Chief of Staff of the Army." So we went back to the Pentagon around 4 o'clock, and I got to sit in General Schoonmaker's office, who was the Chief of Staff of the Army at that point. And of course, I'm just like inside, I'm out of my mind.
Yeah. Like, what am I doing here? This is, it's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm out of my mind, right? But I'm in there. I'm having a conversation with him. We're talking and talking about stuff and stuff we could do for soldiers. And at the end of it, he basically said the same thing Jill said. He said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a specific answer other than this." I said, "I'd like to be available to serve you in whatever capacity you think I can help. And I'd like to just be able to hang around and learn more about the culture, because then maybe someday when you ask me, what do I want to do, I can give you an answer that really is informed,
Mhm.
and not just hey, uh, I don't know what you need, but here's what I can do." So he said yes. And so for the next 4 years, um, I did, I'm going to say, 100 or more events um, for service members deployed and here in the States. And I really got a chance to know the culture. And in that space, I started going to my first trip. I flew on a USO tour Christmas of 2005 with General Pace, who then was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And I was one of about 4 or 5 entertainers that got to fly over. And this again, like you scratch your head and you say, "Really?" We got to fly over to Europe on Air Force Two. which,
Okay.
is basically Air Force One that's in a
Yeah.
boat. So we fly over to Europe. We visit 11 countries in 7 days. And it's, it's United Arab Emirates, it's Bahrain, it's Iraq, it's Afghanistan, it's Kuwait, it's, all over. Djibouti, Africa, off the coast of Africa.
Wow.
Marine base there. So anyway, 11 countries in 7 days. On our way back, I'm sitting next to General Pace on a C-130 before we got on Air Force Two in Kuwait. And or I guess maybe we were coming from, anyway, it doesn't matter where. But I'm sitting next to General Pace, and I said to him, "Sir, it was really great to go to all these places that are big places where you have big crowds, a lot of service members and men and women." I said, "Well, what about all the service members that don't ever get anything?
Right.
Because they're out in a little field, camp somewhere." And he said, "Well, they just don't, there's not much they can do." And I said, "Well, if you ever decide that you want to send somebody to those places where nobody goes," I said, "I'll do that." So I don't know, it was maybe 6 or 7 months later, I got a call. And it was from the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman at that point. He was the first ever of his kind. He was the first senior enlisted advisor. They never had a senior enlisted officer ever before be a advisor to the chairman. So he, at that point, as a command sergeant major, became the senior enlisted officer in all of the military, all branches. He represented all of them. And he asked me if I wanted to go on a trip with him. So we went to, I think the first trip we went to Afghanistan, and the second trip we went to Korea. But anyway, suffice it to say that I went with him, and then that just opened things up. And over the course of the next several years, I did, I don't know, over 150 concerts. Primarily in forward operating bases in Iraq and Afghanistan that never got anything. Like there might be 5 people in the audience, and they just got in from a patrol
Right.
looking for bad guys, So you asked me. So that's a little bit of just a history of like how that unfolded, and then you asked me like, what are some special memories? Well, here's a special memory. About 2 or 3 visits in, I'm doing shows in modulars because I'm going to places that don't have shows.
Yeah.
So they don't have a stage, they don't have anything like that. So I'm doing, modulars, like little mobile home office things, right? And there's a poster on the door, and 20 people will show up, and they're sitting like this, And I'm thinking to myself, like, they don't seem like they want to be here. Well, after doing that a couple of times, I said to Jill, who was traveling with me at that point, I said, what's going on? What's the story? Like, why does it seem like they don't want to be here? And so she got a little sheepish, and she said, "Well, okay, I'll just tell you." She said, "These are small bases. They don't really ever get anything, or not much.
Mm-hmm.
And, these servicemen and women are 18, 19 years old. They were pre-teens easily when you had your hits. They didn't really know your music necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're small base, there's a lot of work for them to do. And when they get a break, they want to go lay down or whatever, play video games. But the senior officer there on the base doesn't want the base to be embarrassed by nobody showing up for your show. So they were all ordered to go to your show.
Mm.
And
Which is the opposite. Which is the opposite of what you wanted. You're trying to.
Right. So
Yeah.
so she said, and here's the term that they use in the military. It's called mandatory fun.
Oh,
So I said, well, that won't do. And she said, well, what do you propose? So I just said, I don't know, let's go to dinner. So we're sitting in the DFAC, the dining facility, and I see over in the corner, there's a little platform raised. It's, I don't know, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet square in the corner, but it's a raised stage. But it doesn't look like a stage, it's just a raised platform. And I
Mhm.
said to her, I said, well, wait, I said, why wouldn't we just come? I said, and there's hundreds of people in the dining facility, right? And I thought, well, why don't we just make a decision that we're not going to make it a show? Like, hey, it's a Michael Peterson show. Come on to the
Mhm.
show. I said, what if I just set up in the corner with my PA? I had a little portable PA, went in a golf bag. I said, what if I just set up in the corner? Nobody introduces me. It's not like, hey, you all be quiet and listen. Like none of that. Like they're going to be eating dinner. I'm going to set up and I'm just going to start to play. And whoever digs it can stay, and whoever doesn't like it can leave. But there's
Mhm.
no pressure on anybody to clap. There's no, I'm just going to play like I'm busking on a street corner somewhere. And man, it changed everything because they weren't ordered to be there. They're having dinner. They can listen if they want. There's no pressure, but they liked what I was playing. And so hundreds of them would stay. And when they got done eating their dinner, they'd stay and they'd listen. And they'd scoot up closer. And
Mhm.
we'd get to laughing and we'd get to joking and we'd tell stories and I'd play songs and take requests and that's a special memory for me because it changed something for me as an entertainer. I mean, it really made me realize that, like I remember going to one base, I think it was called Fob Night, and it was, I don't know, the dining area, might have been 1,000 square feet, the whole dining area with the
Mhm.
kitchen included, and there might have been 5, 7 service members there coming in sort of one at a time, and come to find out they'd just been on a patrol where they're looking for bad guys. You can extrapolate whatever you want from that.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing them sitting there as I'm starting to play. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if I could just, like, how will I know I've been impactful? Okay, well, if when I'm done, a couple of them are smiling and maybe their shoulders are dropped and maybe they sit back in their chair. Like
Yeah.
that would be like a standing ovation,
Innovation. Yeah.
right? So it just changed things for me, and it made, on some level, it made the crass business side of the music business, the chase for the dollar and the chase for look at me, look at me. There's a lot of good in that. I don't want to I'm not a pessimist about that. There's a lot of beauty that happens. And when I do concerts to this day, and when most artists do concerts, they want to bring joy to that audience.
Sure.
So there's no put down in that. But there's a crass part of the music business that's just about the pursuit of self. And it just, in the light of doing those kinds of events, any shred I had of that left in me just got put in its place. And it changed me. I mean, it really changed me. So then on the heels of that, and not on the heels of that, but sort of in the midst of all of that.
Michael Peterson is a very humble individual. He's been the recipient of numerous distinguished public service awards for his role as a spokesperson for the Special Olympics, U.S. Selective Service Ronald McDonald House, the USO St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, the American Legion, the New Holland Corporation, and the U.S. Army. In 2008, Michael was chosen by the USO and the U.S. Army as the sole for service to the nation. Just keep that in mind as we continue to watch this conversation with Michael Peterson.
I started doing a lot of stuff, particularly with the American Legion,
Hmm.
but with almost all the service organizations. And for the last 15 years, I've been a national spokesperson and the MC for the Veteran Administration's primary arts therapy program, which is called the National Veterans Creative Arts Festival. So once a year I MC their event, and I'm a spokesperson for them. And then this is the 15th year of me serving as an entertainer slash advisor slash branding guy, creative guy for one of the leading veterans research institutes in the country, a program that's called the IVMF, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, out of Syracuse University. So both Jill and I, Jill sits on their board. We do a bunch of events for them. Primarily the last 10 or 11 years, they have an event called VWISE, which is an acronym that stands for Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship. So it's a 3-day long entrepreneurship training weekend that takes place in different cities throughout the year. It's completely free to women veterans and women veteran family members. But essentially, the purpose is to raise up veteran entrepreneurship, because
Sure.
statistics show that veteran entrepreneurs tend to succeed in building and growing a small business beyond the rate of normal people who didn't serve in the military. So we're trying to amplify veterans starting small businesses. So I've served, that organization. This is my 15th year with the National Veterans Creative Arts Festival. And, just hundreds and hundreds of events to raise money for veterans or service organizations for, not a brag, it's just fact. We've helped to raise millions of dollars for these organizations. So it's just been a real passion for me.
Well, good. That's amazing. And I'm going to ask you at some
Did
point.
I tell you too much?
No. I would love all the links. I would love all the links to those. I could put in the description of this video, because there's veterans out there that would benefit from it.
The IVMF, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. If you are a post 9/11 veteran and you have any kind of a disability rating, they have a program that's called the EBV, Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans with Disabilities. And it's a totally free program. They pay for everything. They treat you like a 4-star general. It's a 30-day advance. I think it's 90-day advance program online. And then to follow that up, then you go in person to a 10-day training course at one of I think the 11 or 12 major universities now. And the PhD professors from the business school are your professors. And the Small Business Administration is there, and they're helping you to get loans, and they teach you how to build a business plan, and they teach you about branding. And it's an incredible program. And most people don't know about it. But if you're a veteran, you're interested in starting a small business or learning about that, go to the Institute for Veterans and Military Families website out of Syracuse University, ivmf.com, I believe.
Yeah, send me the links and I'll put them in the description of the video. So I'll remind you in a text. It reminds me, first off, and I'm glad you shared your story about not just helping the military in a big way, doing big shows, but doing the small shows for people. And when you talk about going into the cafeteria or the eating area,
dining facility, sure.
Yeah, it reminded me of, I grew up in 29 Palms, California. Now that's a Marine Corps base, the largest one in the world. And I was a trumpet player growing up, and a buddy gave me a guitar and said, "Hey, you can play trumpet, trombone, and piano and drums. You could probably play this." So I thought, okay, I'll try it. So I started singing at a little restaurant called Manny's Place, and then it turned into Don's American Barbecue, a little 150 to 200 square foot room, just a single room. But it was right there in the military base. And of course, this is 1993, 1994. Country was huge. So I'm sitting there playing for a group of people eating, most of them not paying attention to me, which is fine. And I made up little books and stuff. Thank you for listening, and all the list of songs that I would sing. And through that, the place turned into a 1 room to 3 rooms to 5 rooms to an outside being full in about a year and a half. And a ton of young Marines would come out there, and they would listen to country music, and it would make them feel like they were home again. And it always, that's what I loved about it. I sang 7 nights a week, Michael, 7, for about almost a year straight. And I'd go there, and it was wonderful. A guy named Wolfgang Hung, I remember him still. He's on my Facebook. He was a young soldier from, I think, Washington. And, I'd go out rappelling with these guys. They tried to get me on bulls, to ride bulls. I'm like, no, I'm going to be a singer. I'm not going to kill myself.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to go tour and play for the military. And there was a couple times in Nashville I tried to get a couple booking agents to book me to go do a USO tour or something like that. But it's wonderful. I think that's the thing that's missing in this world, is the giving back. And you were truly, and from hearing you talk, you were truly trying to give back and not receive. Not like, oh, I need gigs. You were trying to give to the soldiers that were risking their lives and that were spending time away from family and wives and husbands and kids in a foreign land, that they may never return back to the U.S. And I think you, continuing the great tradition of Bob Hope and all the guys that back in the day that gave of their time and their energy, when you could have been trying to get another record deal and trying to sell another platinum record, or get a #1 hit song on the radio, you were focusing your energy onto something that was bigger than yourself, which I loved hearing you say that.
Well, that's nice of you to say that, and in full transparency, and I don't think a lot of people that have not done this, I don't think that they might be surprised by this, but I was paid to go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Sure.
mean they paid me to be there. So I don't want to give the impression that I went and volunteered and I didn't receive any compensation for it. I just want to be honest about that.
Oh yeah, no, and
I
I
would never
figured
want
that.
anybody to
But
say
the thing is,
I was misleading, but
yeah,
it was good money, but that's not really, it wasn't why I was there,
yeah.
clearly. So
Yeah, but it's funny. Good money versus trying to have another, 7 #1 hits or 10 #1 hits or
yeah,
15,
right.
and to cement yourself as the greatest. Because I know, you know, even though you didn't try to pursue it heavily for the longest amount of time, I know you did, but there's always a little bit of the artist, first off, that wants to do great things. And Garth Brooks is one of my heroes, and I know that I'm sure he's somebody that influences you. But I remember when I met Garth at the Nashville Songwriters Association Hall of Fame event for Alan Reynolds, who was being inducted in the Hall of Fame, and Garth was there. And Bart said, "Hey, you're with Garth. Stick with him. Bring him over for photos." And I got to talk to Garth a little bit, and he was one of my heroes growing up because he did all the things that I wanted to do. He stood up for 30 straight hours and wouldn't sit down at fanfare. This stuff, he would give free shows. And I said, "Hey, I always told people when I met you, Garth, I was going to do two things. One of two things. I was either going to give you a hug or I was going to punch you out because you did everything I wanted to do." And he goes, "Well, I hope you'll settle for a hug," and gave me a nice big hug.
Yeah.
But when I was trying to make it as an artist, I wanted to do great things like Elvis. I wanted to be huge. I wanted to give to the world. I wanted to do free concerts and make so much money that I could do stuff for free for 6 months, do a 6-month tour and pay for it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I understand the drive to succeed and also the drive to give back. And you were giving when you really could have still, continued your career in Nashville in a sense, on
Well,
a higher level.
well, it's nice for you to say that. And um, I don't know if it's because I got my start doing music in church. So for me, the idea of purpose-driven artistry, like it's not just to make money or be famous, but it's actually to impact people's lives. So that was pretty much a core belief for me, and it has guided me 45 years now of making music. It always felt to me like not that it was, not that you're trying to save everyone, not in that sense, but in the sense that the music has the potential and the capacity to literally change someone's day, if not their life, if not their direction. And there's a certain responsibility that goes with that, and there's a great privilege that's inherent in that. And I just always, that to me, that's how I looked at it. When I would go do music, I wasn't just thinking I'm making money tonight. I was about the last thing I thought of. Like I love the quote from Minnie Pearl. Minnie Pearl said there's two kinds of artists. There's a kind of artist that walks on stage and says, "Here I am."
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an artist that walks on stage and says, "There you are."
I love it.
And I remember hearing that and I thought, well, what a beautiful thing to learn. And the way she said it was so simple. like a great country song. Like you just a profound idea. You know, when you watch Dolly Parton walk on stage, you get there you are. Like
Yes.
she wants to share a moment with you, you know. A friend that I grew up with, he liked to call it the great exchange. Like when you go out on that stage, it's a dialogue, not a monologue. And you're exchanging something with people. And I just love that. I love that. That fits the way that I feel good about it.
Yeah. And it's funny, you know, and I don't want to like point at anybody or talk about it, but sometimes the most famous people in the world, sometimes, not always, but the majority of them that I've seen are the here I am type of people
Yeah.
instead of there you are, you know, and you
that's
know,
okay. I mean,
no, and the thing is, it does take all types of people because they can influence people in a positive way as well.
Yeah.
You know, my wife always talks about, you know, I'm gonna go take a break because you're talking too much. I always when we do shows, I'm always talking to audience members, going back and forth because, like you said, it's a great exchange. They're there, you know, at their grace. They could leave at any point in time, and you're trying to, you know, find out who they are, what, you know, what they struggle with, you know, because music. The one thing I've seen with your music too is that you can make them laugh, you know, you can make them cry because there's healing in both. And I was thinking when you were singing those shows in the cafeterias, and it's not a cafeteria, whatever it is in the military,
The dining facilities.
the dining facilities, that I bet you one of your most popular songs was "When the Bartender Cries."
Yeah, right. And it's not you wouldn't call it a happy song.
No, no, but it's a lesson song in a sense for anything. It's not just drinking. You know you're in trouble when the bartender cries. I want everybody to go find that song, because that's probably, I would say that's my favorite song of yours. And of course, I love from
Oh,
your dude, but it is because it's a
thank you.
real song. It's a real
Yeah.
song you can picture in a bar. Anybody sitting in a bar, you know you're in trouble when the bartender cries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that song. And a funny story about that song, I was on the George Jones show
Hmm.
with Pam Tillis and Mel Tillis and me and George Jones. We were the special guests with George. And I think it was right after Drink Swear Still and I had been a hit. And at some point in the conversation, George leaned over the table and he said, "Why don't you grab your guitar there and play that country song of yours?" And I
that country song.
yeah, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I wasn't offended, but it did occur to me that he said that country song. And then right in that moment, it occurred to me, hey, wait a minute. Like the very definition of country singer greatness just told me that I have a song that he wants to hear, that he thinks it really is a country song.
You know you're in trouble when the bartender cries.
Right.
So I just thought, wow, you know, that made me feel so good.
Don't mind the money at all.
You know, and that's just one of those songs, man. And I'll joke with people. I tell them, they say, "Well, where'd that song come from?" I said, "Well, I was in a Legends down on Lower Broadway, and they had a bumper sticker on the mirror behind the bar that said, 'If you drink to forget, please pay in advance.'" And I say that's where that song started. Ha! You
That's
know, so funny.
that's great. Yeah, I mean that's amazing. That country song, play that country song. And the thing is, first off, I mean your music's very, it's got a pop in it. Obviously,
Yeah,
there's some
yeah, of
pop
course.
influence in it.
Yeah.
And of course,
That's
George
where I came
Jones and
from, though. But that's where I
what?
came from.
Yes, I
That's
know.
where I
That's what I'm
came from.
saying. It's not like you and I were born in Oklahoma or Alabama or and that doesn't mean that you're going to be a country singer or a country writer, because there's plenty of great rock and roll artists that are from the South too. But I'm sure that's one of your favorite memories of all time. I mean, was that?
Yeah, I don't know. 2 years prior to that, I'm living in Seattle,
Right?
and I'm visiting once a month to Nashville with a dream. And 2 years later, I'm on the George Jones show.
Yeah.
So it just, it's fascinating, really. It's,
Where life takes you. You don't know where life is going to take you. And, when
that's
I
why.
got to, when I got to Nashville in 96,
Yeah.
it was an eye opener because I was the only one with a hat. I didn't see anybody with a hat. And I thought when I got to Nashville that it was going to be the most country place in the world.
Yeah.
More country than Texas, because I was from California, from the desert of California. And even though I love country music as in Randy Travis, I loved Randy Travis, Dwight Yoakam, George Strait. Those are my three favorite country artists that I played most. Travis Tritt too. When I was doing talent shows, my buddy Keith Thompson, his name is Keith
I know
Thompson. He goes by
I've written
Kiefer.
with him.
Yeah, Keith Kiefer. He and I were roommates. And we did a little duo thing every once in a while, but we did all the talent shows together. And so we went to the Nashville Palace one night, and he goes to the bar to grab us a couple beers. And when he's gone, this older fellow comes up to me with some other guy next to him, and I enjoyed your singing, son. And you're a great horn player too, because I would sing country songs like Dance, and then I would play some trumpet, or Little Sister, and then I'd play some trumpet solo in it. So he goes, I have to have you come out and play some trumpet for me. So I said, okay, well, sure. He goes, well, what's your number? Same thing, bar napkin. Well, I can write it down. I know no business cards in 1996. Gave it to him, and he goes, he was good to meet you, son. I'm Vern Gosden. So I said, well, good to meet you too. Just give me a call sometime. I didn't know who Vern Gosden was. Had no clue who Vern Gosden was. And so Keith is standing there, and he's just standing there with two beers in his hand. And Vern walks away, and he comes and goes, what was he do? What was Vern doing at your table? And I'm like, the guy Vern Gosden. I'm like, he wants me to play with him. And he goes, don't you know who that is? And that's the voice of country music. And I had no clue. That's how stupid I was at 21 years old. And of course now, I mean, I wrote with him for a long time and produced some records on him, or produced some songs on him. But that generation of country music singers, the George Joneses, the Vern Gosden, they sang with such angst, and they lived a rough life, and sometimes it was they did it on self abuse to themselves, but they are the quintessential country music artists. So when George Jones tells you play that country song, you know that he respected that song. And I mean, I just got to say it to you. It's been decades since that was said to you. But, that would, when Vern Gosden loved my music and we wrote songs together, it meant more to me as I learned more about him and his place in country music history. But it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's when you said when the bartender cries. That's one story that I think of. Another story I think of around that song is I got an envelope in the fan mail one day that had something in it. I could tell there was something in it. I could shake something shaking around there. So I opened it up, and it was a letter from a woman and a car key that had been cut in half.
Okay.
The end had been cut off the car key. Like a plastic fob, and then the key had been cut off in half. And then I said, what in the world is this? So I read, and the letter basically says, my husband's been a terrible alcoholic. He was in a terrible car wreck. The last time he was in a car wreck, I took his keys away from him and told him that he couldn't drive until he got sober. And then I took his key and I cut it in half, and I wore it around my neck as a reminder to myself to never trust him. She said, I'm writing this letter to thank you because he's in recovery now. And what got him into recovery was he heard your song, You're in Trouble When the Bartender Cries. And I'm sending you this chain because, he's either in recovery, he was just out of recovery, but something in her, she felt as though there was a ray of hope for her that he was going to stay sober, and she didn't need to wear this anchor around her neck anymore. So
I mean, that's what you talked about, is that you are, in a sense, you're not a look at me, or look at me as look at you, because that's what really gets you as an artist and as a songwriter, is moving people, touching people, healing people, making them laugh, making them dance, making them cry. That's probably what you think about when you're writing a song.
Well, yeah, but if you think about it, Why do people like if you're going to be a superstar as an artist, one thing you have to have is some sales.
You're right. Yeah.
Right. So why do people buy stuff? Because they're moved.
Hmm.
So you can either focus on trying to get people to buy stuff or you can focus on moving people.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then
we
that's
just,
the lasting
you know,
that's the lasting music that happens. You can have hit songs by manufacturing them and putting enough
sure.
money into them. You can. But
But you know, if I remember a friend of mine said to me years ago, he said, if you want to be a superstar, sing songs that make you a spokesperson for millions of people.
hmm,
No, it just made so much sense to me. Like, you know, you sing a song that somebody hears themselves in, and it becomes their song. Just the way that songs that I've heard over the years that I sang along with became my song because they spoke about something I felt and how I felt about my life. And I think that's what great songs do. What great songs do is people see themselves in them and they identify with them. And I think, you know, if I have a chance to have any more success in terms of commercially, I would love it to be as a consequence of singing songs that spoke to people about their own lives, not about me, but about them.
that's great. And that's a great segue because I know you got Hawaii tomorrow, and I want to have more conversations with you. But tell us a little bit about what's going on. Some of the new things that are going on. You signed a management deal, I think. Do you have anything coming up in the near future, the next 3 months, 6 months that you're going to be doing as a result of that?
Most of what I'm going to be doing is stuff that's just going to be sort of engineering our next public uh, sort of
Like laying the
what we're
groundwork,
going to come out
right?
with, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, you know,
How
I
did it come about? How did it come
yeah,
about? Did they reach out to you? Did a friend reach out to you and say and put you with this person?
um, about 7 or 8 years ago, I became friends and eventually had a management relationship with an artist manager of great renown, Stan Moress.
Hmm.
And Stan managed, among other people in his career, like he discovered and managed Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine. He managed Eddie Rabbitt. He managed a lot of big time talent in his career. And you know, the time that Stan and I met, he was dealing with early Parkinson's. And over the course of our what really became a friendship more than a management relationship, because he was ill,
Mm-hmm.
and so we just decided we'd be friends, you know. And even though he was still officially my manager, we really it was really just a friendship, you know. And when he passed, you know, I lost a friend.
Sure.
So a friend of Stan's, because Stan had been friends with Ken Cragen, and
Oh
Ken
yeah,
Cragen,
one of the big
yeah,
names in the business, obviously. Yeah,
yeah.
Kenny
So
Rogers and yeah, yeah.
right, so Pat, Ken Cragen's right hand man, one of his right hand man for 18 years was a guy named Pat Melfi. And Pat, because he was obviously very much a part of Ken's inner circle, he knew Stan. And I can't prove this, but I have a gut feeling, and even if it's just a great story, I like it. I have a feeling that when Stan passed away from his new heavenly body, he arranged the pieces on the chessboard so that Pat Melfi and I could meet. And Pat and I connected because he was a friend of Stan's and I was a friend of Stan's, and we were connected through Facebook. And the shortest version of the story is just to say we started just connecting, and it wasn't any agenda. But over the period of about a year, it just became apparent that there were some neat things we could do together. And so, you know, about 2.5 months ago now, we decided to make it official and form a management relationship. And he then, and I'm super excited about this as well, he then said, I'd like to have a partner to co-manage you with me. And so
Okay.
he brought to the table a long time, very successful artist manager named Steve Cox. Steve, among other claims to fame, is Steve discovered and managed to, his multi-platinum status, Colin Ray.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So Steve and Pat are co-managing me now. And, we've got some really neat, exciting things in the works, none of them are fully formulated enough yet to talk about, but some really
Sure.
neat, exciting things. And I'm looking forward to, number one, making new music. I'm looking forward to releasing some music that's been just on a hard drive for years that people haven't heard. And then I'm looking forward to, touring again. So.
Well, awesome. I know you've gained some new fans here on Rarest Photos. I mean, when I
Well,
look
I'm
at the
so
comments,
glad.
well, you really, I mean, and there's a lot of people that are fans of you and love your music that I've seen comment as well. So I mean, I hope we can have some more discussions, more conversations, because there's a
Anytime.
lot. Yeah, good. Now hold on one second. Let me go ahead and I forgot to turn my phone off. There we go. Yeah, so we'll have a great trip to Hawaii. Enjoy your
Thanks, man.
honeymoon for 2 weeks. Your honeymoon again. Now I got to figure out a way to get Kristen to Paris and Hawaii because you've raised the bar so dang high.
You can take her to Paris, Texas.
We've already been to Paris, Texas. We played a show there about 2 years ago, and there's a little Eiffel Tower there.
There is. Okay.
There is, yeah. But yeah, so I think it's Elvis's birthday, which I'm sure you're probably aware of that. Yeah. But this is going to air the day after Elvis's birthday, so.
Okay. All right. Well, when I haven't used my socials to draw attention to the interviews yet, just because my life's been crazy the last couple of weeks. So I haven't really drawn attention that way to it yet. But when we get back from Hawaii, I'm going to really unplug while I'm there. When we get back from Hawaii, the other interview will be out, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm going to, shine the spotlight on my socials on these interviews and draw.
There were tears in his eyes. You're in trouble.
All right, well, take care of yourself. All that wonderful safe travels, and enjoy the sunshine because we're not getting any here in Tennessee. And Vegas is it okay right now out there?
It's about 60, maybe 55, but clear blue sky.
Well, it's 28 degrees here, so we don't even need to talk about that. It's going to be freezing and snowing. So, all right. Well,
hi to your wife. Okay, for me, and thank you for the privilege of sharing this time with you and getting to know you better.
Yep. Likewise.
Please continue to join us for more conversations with Michael Peterson and leave some more comments below on what you thought about this video. And if you have not found Michael Peterson, Google Michael Peterson Country Music and you'll find his music.